Hey guys, I hope I'm not interrupting the Kive workshop. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We're going to be having now our workshop for our local and profit sharing communities, and this is going to be presented by Cedrik, who is also an alumni of the Open Web Foundry, and he's going to be coming up here, sharing his screen, going over some of the code, and then also staying afterwards for a mingle session. If you guys have any questions or anything technical that any technical inquiries that you would want answered. So Cedrik, feel free to come up to the podium and tell us a little bit about what you're working on.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. Hey, everyone. So my name is Cedrik, and I'm the founder of Textory, where we create different tools, libraries, and applications for developers and also for users and for founders on top of the Arweave ecosystem. So let me start by sharing the screen. So yeah, at Textory, that's what we do. We create different tools, libraries, applications, and more to help new developers and also the ones that are already part of the entire ecosystem to be able to interact with Arweave more easily without having to rebuild the wheel every single time. So we've created Blockweave, community.xyz, which will be the first one I'm going to be presenting today. Just a little and quick explanation on how to create your own profit sharing communities. And then we will be looking at Blockweave, ArLocal, RDB, and ArLocal. So yeah, let me get started right away with the communities. So a profit sharing community is something very, very similar to a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization on Ethereum. But on Arweave, we call them profit sharing communities since it has profit sharing capabilities, thanks to the SmartWeave contracts and how we interact with them. So yeah, a community is very similar to a traditional startup. So you create a community, and then you have token holders, and then you can create votes and proposals, and then the users, the community itself, vote on those proposals, and that's how it works. So it's created by the people, for the people, and the entire interaction is based on your own community. So here I have a quick example of community XYZ, which is also a community inside of community.xyz. And then you can see here the amount of community members that you will have, the amount of tokens that you have minted at the very beginning. We will see that in a bit. And then the amount of locked tokens that your users have decided to lock to be able to vote on the different proposals or create their own. And then the amount of active votes that you have. You have also a tab with all your token holders. And you can see here all the list of your token holders with the balances, the vote balances, and all of that. You have the votes. And for the votes, you can create new votes by locking your tokens. And you have multiple options. You can mint new tokens. So the community can decide minting new tokens, for example, to pay for a service that you got, or to give out for a giveaway or something like that. So you can mint new tokens. You can burn vault. So for example, I know a few communities use the burn vault uh, for a security mechanism. So they, for example, they will say you need to lock certain amount of tokens to be able to do something inside of a service. And then if you behave badly, the community decide to burn your entire vault. So everything that you have locked will be lost. You can set a few of the default parameters of your community that you create at the very beginning. And you can also create an indicative vote, which means just having a question and then a yes or no answer. So let's see how to create a profit sharing community. You go here and you create your community. Right now I'm already logged in using RConnect. So that's why we can see my wallet address here. So we hit continue. You are allowed to connect with, to use RConnect or to deploy your file. You drag and drop your JSON key file. And with that, you will be logged in also. So let's say, I don't know, green onion. Not sure what was that, but let's call it green onion. You can set a community logo, a project link, and a community description. And also you need to set your PST token thicker. So for green onion, let's go with Go. And then you have your token holders. Those are the first token holders that will exist in your community. So normally that includes yourself, the creator of your community, but sometimes you don't need to be the creator of the community doesn't need to be part of it. For example, if you offer a service or something like that. This time, let's go with my wallet address. And then the first amount of tokens that we will be minting will be 1,000. So 1,000 Go tokens. Here, you need to set the support, the quorum, the vote length, the minimum length for lock, and the maximum length when locking. You have a few question marks here that will allow you to better understand each one of them, since maybe support quorum may sound confusing at the very beginning. So, for example, for the support, it means the amount of singular people that will vote on a proposal to pass. And the quorum is the total weight, so the vote weight that it needs to pass. So for it to be a yes and not a no. The vote length means for how long do you want to keep up each vote that happens on your community. So 720 means 1 day, something like that, a couple minutes more or less, but it's 1 day, 24 hours. So based on that, you can decide how much you want for your vote length, lock minimum length and maximum. The minimum and maximum, let me show it here, vote. So the minimum and maximum will be used for when you want to lock new tokens. Here, lock length in blocks. And you can see here my minimum and maximum that I'm allowed to lock my tokens. So depending on your own community, sometimes you want to have, let's say, a minimum of a month and then a maximum of a year, 3 years, 4 years, something like that. And other communities might want to be between a week and a month. So you can set those informations here. Then you will have your general information. Here I didn't set a logo, so we don't have it. And all the other informations, the voting that we set, and the token holders. So here you will have the entire list of all the token holders that you set by default at the very beginning. But as I mentioned, once you have those holders, they can go lock a few tokens, go into the votes, and then create a new vote to mint tokens to themselves or to other or to new community members. So then you click you review, and that's it. And that's done. Then your community, it will take a couple of minutes before your community is created. But yeah, it depends on the network at that moment, but it takes only one transaction to be confirmed. So as long as you have one confirmation, you will get the pop-up to your new community. You click connect, and then you will get here inside of your own community, which will have not much of an activity, but you will have, let's say, 1, 2 community members and everything else, just like this one. And like any other community, we have a list of communities here that you can see the top ones and the most used ones. Okay, so that's it for creating a community and how a profit sharing community works. Then you will have to interact with your community by having, it depends on what you want to use, but we have a community.js, which is a JavaScript library to easily interact with your entire community. In fact, community.xyz uses pretty much only community.js to interact with your community. So all you see in the different parts of here of the dashboard works by using community.js. So you can get started there also. It's open source. The entire project of community is open source, including the contract, the website, and also the JavaScript library that we use. So you can go ahead and check it out. Okay, so that's it for the communities. And now we will jump on ArLocal and the different tools that we have for you to easily test your local service before deploying it and having it permanently stored on top of Arweave. So the tools that we will be using is ArLocal suites, which is a couple of functions that allow you to easily interact with ArLocal. So you don't need to remember the different special endpoints that we have in there. One thing important to know is that ArLocal works pretty much as the same as mainnet. So you will have all the same endpoints, but ArLocal, since it's just a local instance and it's very, very lightweight, we have a few fake, let's say, things that happen. For example, when you mine, you aren't really mining, but we do the same interaction that a miner would do to be able to create the different blocks that you need for your transactions. So with our local suites, you can easily just call mine instead of remembering that you need to go. Well, that one is easy, but remembering to go to the endpoint dash mine. We will be using Blockweave, which is a JavaScript SDK library and TypeScript for easily interacting with the Arweave network. So the only tools that works only as a testing tool, so will be ArLocal and ArLocal suites. Blockweave, you can use it for testing and you can use it on mainnet. And RDB, which is another tool that we have released for you to easily interact with Arweave, just like if it were a database. So right now what I have here, just to show it real quick, is I have installed TS Node, typings for Node, and TypeScript. That's it. And then I have a starting script, which calls TS Node source index.ts. So next, what we need to do, let me go back to package just to show it. What we need to do is to install ArLocal and ArLocal suites in dev dependencies, since they are just for testing. Or darn, I forgot that. In reality, in this case, I could just add them in as dependencies, but it's best to show it how it should work when you are creating your own testing, your own test environment for your different projects. So that's done. And now we will add the other ones. So Blockweave and RDB. Am I missing one? I think I'm not missing anything. So let's go ahead with that. Okay. So now let's start coding. First, we import ArLocal. We import suites. Import Blockweave. And RDB. That's it. Okay, next, let's just copy what we have here for ArLocal to get started. So we create a new instance of ArLocal, and then we start it, we do our tests, and then we stop it at the end. So for this one, let me just go ahead and initialize pretty much everything first. So Blockweave, new Blockweave. Arweave requires an URL to interact with. In this case, we will be using the default ArLocal instance. We can also change the port here, but by default, it's 1984, which is the default also on mainnet. If you are a miner, you can interact with different peers by using 1984. So HTTP localhost 1984. Okay, then we do suites, new suites, and suites require the Blockweave that we just created, and also a wallet. Right now we don't have the wallet, so let's create it. You can use your own JSON wallet, or you can generate one. This generated wallet, it's the same thing as your JSON key file that you would generate yourself by using, let's say, RConnect, and then you export it. It will be pretty much the same thing. Right now, we won't be having real funds in there, but you can use it as a normal wallet. You can generate those wallets for your own users when you create your different projects and services. So now we have the wallet. And then we are missing RDB. RDB requires an instance of Arweave. So let's use Blockweave in this case. And for the log level, let's just keep it that way. Okay. So we have all our different parts of the project initiated. And then we can get started by testing out different things. So the first thing, let's just look at, make sure that we are connected to ArLocal, so to the network of ArLocal. Console.log, wait, blockweave.network.get info. And remember that you can get all these different functions and all of that you need to interact with them by going into our different GitHub repos. So we have ArLocal suites, Blockweave, and everything is there. So for example, for this one, I'm going to show it in a little bit, but when you start it, here we show that you can connect to Arweave.net, which is the main net and the main gateway that everyone uses. And then you can also use it without the URL if you are going to connect to Arweave.net by default. And these are the initial parts of Arweave.net and also the configurations that you can set when you initialize Blockweave. So you have URL, but you can also use the host, the port, and the protocol separated. You can have a timeout. By default, it's 20 seconds. And a login, which is just to show more information when you interact with the network. Okay, so let's run that. Something's missing. It's not showing the console log. Okay, let me hide this. Okay, so we have the wallet, RDB, ArLocal, index. Oops, I forgot to save, I think. Yeah, I forgot to save. Okay, so we see a few informations. Those data, these two lines, come from ArLocal. So you will be getting information about ArLocal to see how is it going and how it's interacting, which is very useful for when you want to know how it's interacting with the mainnet also. And then here we have the response that I have the console log here. So it clearly shows that network is ArLocal, which is what we need. And then a few informations about the height, which is 0 because it's empty, doesn't have anything yet. And then the current, a randomly generated current block, because it needs at least one block at the very beginning. Okay, so let's keep going. Let me hide this. So we know that is working. Now let's add funds to our wallet, and then we will create that transaction. It's very, very simple to do all of that. So in this case, we will be using suites to add funds to our wallet. Suites dot funds. Fund wallet. Okay. And then to fund the wallet, we are using Winston. If we see here, the amount that we need is in Winston. So Winston is 1 and 12 zeros. Winston, it's equal to 1 AR. So that's what we will be doing right now. 12. That's 1 AR that we are receiving in that wallet. And then we can create a transaction. Okay. Tx equals await blockweave dot create transaction. The create transactions require two things. One is the wallet that you just created, or your user's wallet when you are creating the transaction for the user. And then you have the data. In this case, you can also have, if we go here, you have create a data transaction. I'm not sure if you guys can see this that well, but you have create a data transaction and also create a wallet to wallet transactions. So to transfer tokens, to transfer AR from one wallet to another. Right now, what we want is to create a transaction. So we have the data and then we set something in there. So example, hello, Arweave community. Perfect. Then let's add some tags because, as I was mentioning, RDB allows you to use Arweave just like if it were a normal database. And for that, you need to have tags, and then you get information based on those tags. So tx dot add tag. There are a few default tags, for example, app name, app version, and a few others, and they are normally written this way. But you can, if you want, you can just say app or anything else. But this is the default, so it's best to keep using the default ones. And also RDB gives us some special functions for those so that you don't need to do get tag and all the tags that you need to get. So for this one, let's do just testing. Obviously, on mainnet, another important thing is that we want to have a better name. So, for example, the name of your own project, of your own app in there. And then you can also have the app version, which is another default one that we normally use. So with that, we sign the transaction. We don't need to send the wallet. So it's await tx.sign. And then normally we would go and say tx.post to post the transaction. One thing that we can do with blockweave is sign and post. So both at once. Okay, so now the transaction has been, at this point, it will be submitted to ArLocal. So let's see if all of that works. We will just see a few logs from ArLocal itself, since we don't have any console log or anything like that for now. But you can see here, it's the information that ArLocal received as a post. It has the idea of the new transaction created. The last TX, it's nothing because it doesn't exist. Other transaction, the owner, encrypted, and the different tags that we had. So we had two, also encrypted, and the data. So now with that in place, we can go. Well, one thing you can do here, which might be useful, is that sign and post or just post will return some information. So the status text, and the data of that transaction. Yeah, let's just show it. Okay. And you can see here, status 200, the text is okay, and the data is nothing because the data doesn't return anything for submitting a transaction, for posting it. Okay. And with that, also, you can have tx.id. You have your transaction ID here. So normally what you will do is you create a transaction, then you keep the transaction ID, and let's say you want to keep checking the status of that transaction to make sure it has been confirmed on the network. So it's very useful to have the transaction ID. Now, what we need to do is to mine a new block to be able to grab that block using RDB. So let's mine a new block. Oh, wait, sweet. Remember, this is something for ArLocal. So sweet will do it. ArLocal itself, it's only used to start and stop it. And you have also a few options, but normally it's just with that. For example, you can change the port to show the logs. You can change the database path, and you can also persist the database. By default, it doesn't persist. So every time you restart it, it's a new interaction, which is normally what we want for doing unit tests. But sometimes we want to keep it online, which also you can use ArLocal as a CLI tool. So you start it from the CLI, and then you interact from many different parts or many different projects that you have to that singular point, to that singular gateway. So mine. After mining, then we are able to grab the transaction and the data of the transaction that we want. So get the transaction. Okay. Const result. Await RDB. So we will be using RDB. And then see, since we have used app name, we can use the function app name. Sorry, I'm missing something here. We need to say where we are searching. So you can search for a singular transaction, multiple transactions, a block, or multiple blocks. In this case, we want to search for multiple transactions, let's say. And we want to have the app name. Then we do a find. We have find all, find one, and find. Find will find only the 10 first, the 10 last transaction that your app have created. Find all will grab everything. So make sure that you add as much information as possible to RDB, so it's able to find all the transactions, but only for your app and for that particular use case that you are looking for, instead of searching for the entire network, which will never end and it will just stop working after a little bit, I guess. So let's go just with find. We can do find, let me see, result. So find one, let's say. And we say as, let me just make sure I have the right one. Oh, it's here. So we want an RDB transaction. Okay. And let's show the result. So the result has many, many different things, since it's an object that has a lot of things inside of it. But you can also just get the result, and then you have the different information. So you can have the ID. Let's store this ID to compare it with the other one. Const txid. Oh, we still have the ID here, so we just say so tx.id. and equal to tx.id. So we have the ID of the created, no, the ID of the result, the ID of the created transaction, and it says it's true. So we are having the exact same transaction from here, from the one that we created. So that's how you create a new transaction using Blockweave. And also how you interact with ArLocal by using RDB and by creating your instance of ArLocal. As I mentioned, ArLocal, you can have it right in your testing environment, or you can just run it from the terminal. So yeah, it's fairly simple. npx ArLocal. And you can see that ArLocal is now started. And then if I go here, for example, and then localhost 1984, I'm inside of ArLocal, our own instance, but running from the CLI. If I close it, then there's nothing. The advantage of using it right in here is that you can create unit tests and different testing tools also, and have it all start and stop directly from your own code. So yeah, we learned about ArLocal suites, Blockweave, how to create transactions. So Blockweave is the main way. Blockweave and Arweave are the SDK tools, and they are the main ways to interact with the entire Arweave network. So with that, you can create transactions, you can get the information of the network, you can see the peers list, you can pretty much everything. It has every interaction with the different endpoints and the different API calls that Arweave offers locally and also on mainnet. And RDB to interact with Arweave, but much simpler. Instead of having to learn, let's say, GraphQL, or having to type yourself the entire string to be able to interact with Arweave. So that's it. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'm going to be deploying this on our on GitHub.
Perfect. Thank you, Cedrik. Yeah, if anyone has any questions about ArLocal or profit sharing communities, we're going to be sticking around for a little bit longer, just in the audience area. So we'll see you guys in a bit. Cheers, guys.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.